Okay, so Final Fantasy XIV's next expansion, Evercold, has just been revealed. And with it, we got a ton of news from the very first FanFest that everyone is already very excitedly talking about. Now, to be honest, my expectations, probably like a lot of people's, were pretty low going into it. I was mostly expecting the similar rehashing of content that we've seen in the likes of Dawntrail and Endwalker, but this time, they promised a lot actually. New ways to raise item level syncing, a shift away from the daily system, a mid-core rating difficulty, all sorts of new customization options, removal of 2-minute buffs, cross-data party finder fucking finally, and of course, the evolved jobs. So, wow, yeah, we got a lot of stuff shown off, lots of stuff that is genuinely pretty fucking exciting. Obviously, the star of the show is the new evolved jobs that we've had teased to us, and I will spend most of this video talking about them, don't you worry. But before I do, I want to acknowledge the progression system changes that they showcased because I think these are really going to be the secret MVPs of the expansion. Item level syncing and an overhauled weekly progression system is going to feel fresh no matter what job you play. And one of the problems this game had is that at a point, it doesn't really matter how fun your jobs or encounters are. When we get to the point where we're just rehashing the same daily roulettes and weekly clears over and over again, the ones that we've already been doing for years and years, it doesn't really matter how fun your content is. Eventually it will get stale to players because we're just doing the same thing over and over again. And I think Dawntrail has kind of been the epitome of this. I genuinely think the combat and encounter design has been a large improvement over what we got in Endwalker, for the most part. Genuinely, I think most of the EXs and Savage raids we've had have been great, and Fru was a great ultimate. But eventually, the novelty wears off and we get bored of running the same content over and over again, because the release cycle is so slow, and our progression systems for daily roulettes and weekly clears have remained the same for over a decade. So regardless of whether the job changes are good or bad, the fact that they're finally making changes to the core progression systems themselves is huge. I think this is really going to help things feel more fresh for a lot longer. At least that's my hope. Because you can have the best raid they've ever released in the entire history of the game, and eventually we're just going to grow bored of doing it out of running it so many times. This is inevitable with any content they add, so making a change to something as core to the game as your daily and weekly rewards is really going to go a long way. Anyways, with that out of the way, let's actually talk about what evolved jobs are and what this means for the game. Obviously, most of this is just going to be early speculation. We only learned about these like 2 or 3 days ago, but this will lead me to talk about the current job design philosophy in general, why we got to the place we're at now, and what they're trying to do differently with Evolved going forward. So what are Evolved jobs? They're basically just a different specialization that you can swap to. So for example, now you'll have your Reborn Dragoon, which is essentially just the Dragoon we currently have in Dawntrail. However, starting in Evercold, you will be able to freely swap to Evolved Dragoon, assuming you're out of combat of course, which will have different actions, a different rotation, and overall is intended to feel like a different job. They've made it very clear that you can swap between these modes whenever you want, and their goal is to make both modes viable to complete all content in the game. So in practice, we can basically think of this as them adding like 20 plus new jobs to the game. From the examples we were shown in the dev showcase, the amount of actions have been trimmed down pretty tremendously and combined in ways to reduce the amount of buttons each job has. And to be honest, while I'm not exactly thrilled at the idea of losing a bunch of actions on some jobs, this pretty much just needed to happen. They've been adding new actions to existing jobs for years and years, and they just can't keep doing this forever. This is kind of just like doing a stat squish or a level squish. They're essentially just squishing down the number of buttons we have to give themselves more design space in the future. I've heard some concerns over this, but just as an aside, having more buttons isn't always a good thing, and more buttons doesn't always automatically mean more depth. It's entirely possible to make very deep and complex character rotations with just a handful of buttons. MOBAs have been doing this for decades, and some of these characters have some of the most complex and interesting character designs across any game I've played. What really matters is how these buttons are implemented and what they actually do with them. And at least from what they've shown off, they are being far more experimental and bold with their design choices. The 4 jobs that were shown off in the dev panel have already set many precedents for job design that we just don't have currently. And this is really exciting. While Paladin had some of its rotation buttons removed, they just straight up gave it an entirely new mechanic. Counterattack follow-ups from your mitt skills, increased in potency if you time it right. Dragoon was shown with left and right positionals, and is a requirement for them to access their burst, which gives them their fucking PvP LB. There's no other ability in the game even remotely like this. And Bard has fucking cast times on one of their song stances. Like, yeah, they're bringing back fizz-ranged cast times. So, Machinist getting their PvP sniper rifle is a very real possibility. Even White Mage, which was honestly the least interesting to me, they're shifting the design where they want you clicking your heal buttons like Cure or Medica. Clicking your base heals will be what contributes to your damage output, unlocking whatever your Lily damage attacks are. They want it to be a healer that primarily focuses on healing, compared to the state it's in now, where you only really want to be clicking your Lily GCDs and glaring outside of that. And honestly, as long as the other healers aren't all doing the same thing, sure, I'm willing to give this a try. My concern initially with this mode is that it would be mostly all flash without any substance, which at this point I've kind of come to expect. But they're showing off new ideas here for the jobs, like genuinely. This sets a huge precedent for the rest of the cast, as I said, and now I'm over here coping that Summoner might actually get their pet back, or maybe Dark Knight will tap its HP as part of its rotation, like it does in PvP. This is getting me excited for the game in a way that I really haven't felt like since I started playing and was learning all the jobs for the very first time. I love class choice and class design in games. It's always fun for me to learn what each class does differently and how they engage with the game as a whole because of it. Now, I'm not going to be the guy that says every job plays the same in this game, because that's just not true. Each job still has its own nuance, even if a lot of uniqueness has kind of been designed away. What I will say though is that every job has grown stagnant in its identity. They have grown hesitant to innovate on what each job does. Even the job that I will relentlessly defend, my beloved Samurai, which received an incredible change to Tsubame in 7.1. Like, functionally, this didn't change its identity at all. It's still the big burst damage melee DPS, the job you always give dance partner to if you have one, and it's always been like that since Shadowbringers. And like, this isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? Like, you know, if a job's identity is solid and fills a unique niche in the game, then what more do you really need to do than refine what's already there? But the problem is, not every job in the game has a clearly defined identity, and even jobs that don't receive changes can still fall behind in design as other jobs do get changed. Summoner, since its rework in Endwalker, has largely just been labeled the easy caster. And while it's by no means bad for a job to be easy, when the defining feature of your job is just its ease of use, I think that's a failure of design. You can have a job be easy to play while still fulfilling a unique niche in and of itself. The thing that makes Summoner unique are its primal attunements, and the ability to choose the order you want to enter them in. This isn't a bad idea in and of itself design-wise, at least in my opinion, but I think the identities of each individual phase are so shallow that the overarching design idea kind of falls apart. What you feel about the class when you play it is mostly just that 90% of its kit is instant cast, and you're not really engaging very much with its individual primal phases. And the main issue I have is this core idea wasn't iterated on at all in the transition from Endwalker to Dawntrail, and I'm still really bummed about this. Again, I don't think Summoner needs to be harder to play, quote unquote. I just think they could have found new ways to expand on its rotation identity without just giving it potency increases and a new healing skill. They could have added new primals to the rotation or expanded more on what each primal currently does. They could have distinguished their demi-phases more than just adding Solar Bahamut, which just has a different Hilo GCD. There's definitely a nuance to this, but this kind of brings us back to the evolved mode. Here, they are attempting to more clearly define a job's uniqueness. And the fact that we still have access to our reborn modes, aka the old rotations, this means that the new evolved modes don't need to be bogged down by the history the job has had in the past. And I think this is part of why they've been so hesitant to innovate jobs in the past. We grow accustomed to the things we like, and that can make us very resistant to change. And this kind of puts the design team in a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. Make big job changes and you risk pissing off the players who liked it as it was before. But if you make no changes, players may grow bored or frustrated with the lack of class direction. Now, they can try something different without damaging longtime players of jobs that have grown to like where they are now. It's a pretty bold promise, but I don't think there's a way you can really be upset about this. This is about as close as we can get to accommodating everybody. And that's kind of where I'm at now. The way I see it, we get like 20 plus new jobs to mess around with and try out. And if I don't like them that much, I mean, I can just go back to playing Reborn Samurai again. Yeah, I'm gonna be that asshole. But also, as they've said many times throughout the keynote, things change over time, right? I've had a great run with Samurai, and I've loved playing this job more than most people probably love theirs. But I'm open to trying something different, whether that's Evolved Samurai or something completely different. My main hope is just that something sparks the same level of joy I felt playing Samurai for the very first time back in Shadowbringers. But if it doesn't, well, that's okay too. Not everything is going to stick, and there's definitely going to be some pain points, whether that's with the evolved jobs themselves, or all the various system changes they're making in the background as well. They're going to get a ton of feedback on this, so I'm certain we're going to see a lot of changes throughout the next handful of fanfests, and also in the first set of patches after Evercold properly releases. But what this shows is that they are trying something new, and I am very, very happy about that. I honestly think many of the changes in Dawntrail have been a step in the right direction. I don't think this expansion has been nearly as bad as a lot of people have made it out to be, but the game has grown stagnant in many ways, and it's been like this for a lot longer than just this current expansion. So no matter what we actually get with Evercold, at least we'll now know for sure that they are now trying to innovate and do something different. And personally, that's made me a lot more excited for the game's future than pretty much anything else they could have revealed. And again, stepping off of just the evolved jobs, this new job design is going to change how they evaluate classes, but also fights as a whole. They talked a lot about the 2-minute burst window during the keynote, and how a lot of bosses just kinda sit there for it while you beat them up, in between the mechanics. Shifting their design away from this 2-minute window is going to let them innovate a lot more on fight design, and I think the fight design in Dawntrail has actually been very good. Arcadian was a great raid tier, and we've had some awesome EX fights this expansion too. Dawntrail has had some issues, but I don't think that means we should ignore what they did well, and I think they really nailed it with encounter design this time around. Yes, FF raids are pretty formulaic in a lot of ways, but they know that formula better than anyone else. I think they genuinely did do a lot of things well in Dawntrail, but so much of it was rooted in the stagnant game design we've had for so long. So, hey, maybe it's time for a change. There's going to be a ton more to talk about in the future as we get more information, and honestly, I'm really excited, guys. I'm looking forward to it. Like, this has got me running roulettes again to actually finish leveling all my jobs, and trust me when I say that is a goddamn miracle. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, but thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.
What is this?